Hello, hello. I hope you're doing well. So I'm jumping in on Sunday because I'm on the road all this coming week, and I wanted to kind of connect in and continue the thread of the last couple of live streams where I've been like deep in thinking about graph types and like what's a small tip or a small thing that we can do that we can bring into our classrooms to make things a little bit easier as our students are making their graphs. And one thing that I thought of, it's the new year, there's a lot of discussion of time. We have a whole heck of a lot of time data that we work with our students. And so one thing I was thinking about is that old saying, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but like, when it's time, make a line. This is an old saying. I talked earlier, one of my like musings earlier in the fall was on like, well, it doesn't always work because sometimes we are looking at time across categories. But today I wanted to think about kind of the difference between like a line chart as we can select it in Excel or Google Sheets and a connected scatter plot. Also possible to look at and connect in Google Sheets and Excel, and kind of what is the difference and why we might want to choose this one, connected scatter plot, over this one, the line graph, as it comes up in Google Sheets and Excel. So I want to share out a little bit of an example of kind of what is going on. So here we're looking at some data from the 1990s to early 2000 for penguin counts of Adelie chick. So a specific kind of penguin in a specific location. We're looking from the Palmer Station Antarctic Research Area. That's where they were counting these chicks, which this Palmer Station Antarctic Research Station is on the Western Antarctic Peninsula. So that's the like arm that comes up off of Antarctica that gets really close to the base of South America. If you are not familiar of looking at images of Antarctica. So what we have is each year we have a total count of chicks across the different rookeries and across the different nests of all of these like totally adorable, oh my goodness, Adelie penguins are so cute. I have never been, but I have spent a lot of time looking at pictures because I really like penguins. But what I want to do is sort of point out, like, this is what happens if I have gone to Excel and I have asked it to make a line chart of the data. Just making sure this is actually what I want to be looking at. Oh, don't we love it going live stream and wobbling in real time? Okay, so this is what happens when Excel makes a line chart. It's also what happens when Google Sheets does it too. Okay, so what I want to note is that we've got 1992, 1994, 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998, 99, 2000, and they are all equally spaced. We've got each of our rows of this data table all equally spaced showing up here. But there's a problem, right? There is a difference in time between 1994 and 1995 and 1992 and 1994. But on this representation, when we select line chart, line graph, what is it that it actually shows us? Just line. Excel calls it a line. It reads it in equal spacings, meaning it kind of reads each of these years as basically a category, not as a number. Okay, so this other thing that I kind of jumped down too quickly, let me go back to it. This is what the data look like if we take the exact same data and if we plot it as a connected scatter in Excel. And so what are we seeing? Now there's a visual. 1993 shows up on our x-axis, on our horizontal, because it is reading the year as a number. And therefore, that number sequence, 1993 comes after 1992 and comes before 1994. And so if you have time series data that you are working with your students, and there are gaps in timing, like there was in that example penguin data set that I just showed you, where we didn't have case counts from 1993. Now, I just kind of created this example data set to show you this reality of a line, selecting line in Excel and Google Sheets works until it doesn't. So I just want to put out that caveat. They actually did collect information about Adelie chicks in 1993. I just moved it out to show you this reality, this underlying thing, because sometimes we are working with data and we have a gap. If we are recording rainfall every day throughout the year and it doesn't actually rain one day, or if we are surveying our class, our classmates, but we don't come in on the weekends, we're going to have gaps in our time series. And it's maybe important to your question to honor that there is a longer time gap in that time series. For example, like 1993 did actually exist as a year. We don't have a data point from it. We can connect that line because we could project that the number of cases, the number of Adelie penguin chicks, which is the case, that's what we're actually counting, would have been somewhere between the 1992 level and the 1994. Is it a guarantee? No, absolutely not. It could have been more than 1992. It could have been less than 1994. But there's like a reasonable guess that it was probably between those two. And that's what that line indicates. It's that like within like our understanding of the data, we would reasonably expect the data value, had we measured it, to exist somewhere along that line. So just a sort of word of the wise, as you're going forward and having your students work with data, if you have a time gap in your time series, use the connected scatter plot. Absolutely. Now, when I'm working with my undergrads and we're talking about data visualization and how we're going forward, I just always use a connected scatter plot. So then I know that the data are getting projected onto that data representation where my X value, whatever my time variable is, year, day, hour, whatever it is actually reading in as a number sequence. And for me, that just gives me sort of a peace of mind. But you don't always have to do that. But I did want to say, if you've got those time gaps on data sets you're working with your students, or if you are looking at assessment data and you, for example, may have a time gap in the 2020, 2021, 2019, 2020 school years, connected scatter plot is definitely the way you want to go, because students existed, they were learning then. We just didn't administer the tests in many places, our state summative tests, during those years of the wobbles of the pandemic. So connected scatter plot, great way to go when you have a gap in your time series. Line chart works, remember, with these like little hiccups on the back end of Excel and Google Sheets, or it's not always a line we want to make because we're not always looking at our data across a continuous thing. We're looking at categories, like I talked about a couple weeks ago. Okay, so those are some thoughts about time and how we can help our students make better graphs when they're graphing with time. Would love to hear your thoughts. How's it going for your students? What's working for your students? What are they still getting hung up on? Let us know. Drop us a comment. Send us a chat. Would love to hear. And then we can put together some resources in this new year for you around time and this like tricky thing that we all understand and our students often really struggle with graphing. Until then.